Let me tell you how a simple fence turned into a full-blown war. Not a neighborly disagreement. Not just some petty argument. I'm talking about a showdown involving land surveys, sheriff's deputies, and one HOA Karen who just couldn't keep her nose out of my business. This story starts on a calm morning, just like any other, with the sound of the birds. The wind across the pasture and the peaceful creak of my ranch gate swinging open. You'd never think it would be the beginning of the craziest week of my life. My name's Jake. I own a mid-sized ranch on the edge of a suburban sprawl. It's been in my family for 3 generations, ever since my granddad staked his claim and worked the land with nothing but grit and his bare hands. Over the years, the world changed. Where there used to be open fields, now there were housing developments, cul-de-sacs, and, of course, an HOA, one of those dreaded homeowner associations that seem to think they have authority over everything within eyesight. At first, I didn't mind them. Their world and mine didn't overlap. They stayed in their manicured bubble, and I stayed on my side of the line, fixing fences, feeding horses, and minding my own business. That is, until they started pushing their boundaries literally. Morning. While checking the property line, I noticed fresh landscaping on my side of the barbed wire fence. Shrubs, flowers, even a little decorative rock path that ran about 10 feet past what I knew was my boundary. At first I thought it was a mistake. Maybe a landscaping crew went over the line. I even gave them the benefit of the doubt and left. A friendly note on the HOA bulletin board in their clubhouse. Nothing aggressive, just, "Hey, looks like the crew may have overstepped. Would appreciate it if the line could be respected. Thanks, Jake, at the ranch." But what happened next made my jaw drop. A week later, not only did they ignore my request, but the HOA president, a middle-aged woman named Carol, who I'd soon know as Karen with a capital K, came storming onto my property with a clipboard in hand and attitude in every step. "Can't just throw up fences wherever you feel like, sir," she barked, standing right in the middle of my pasture like she owned it. "This land is common space for the HOA. You're the one trespassing." That's when I realized we were in for something serious. I tried to explain calmly that I had the deed, the surveys, and county records backing up that this portion of land, every square inch of it, belonged to me. But she wasn't having it. She waved around her little HOA charter like it was the U.S. Constitution. You see this? Section 4. Paragraph 3 states, all external fencing must be approved by the HOA board. You didn't submit any requests, so it's illegal. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't about fencing. It was about control. Karen wanted to stretch her imaginary authority beyond her HOA boundary. So I did what any rancher with an ounce of pride would do. I ordered fresh posts, new barbed wire, and set out to reinforce the entire border of my property. Exactly. To the inch that the county records allowed. I even called a professional surveyor to double-check everything. And I made sure the new fence looked good, sharp, painted, and unmissable. 2 days later, I had neighbors stopping by with popcorn, literally watching from lawn chairs as I dug post holes and hammered stakes. Word had spread. Jake was challenging the HOA, but Karen wasn't about to back down. The next morning, as I was tightening the final length of wire, I heard tires screeching to a stop on the gravel road. I turned around and saw Karen's SUV, flying up the path like a tornado of entitlement. She jumped out, red in the face and fuming. "I warned you," she shouted. "You leave me no choice." She whipped out her phone and no joke dialed 911 right in front of me. "Yes, I'd like to report a man illegally constructing a barrier on community land. He's armed with tools and being aggressive." I couldn't help but laugh. Holding a hammer and a pair of gloves, drenched in sweat, but apparently I was armed. When the sheriff's deputy arrived 15 minutes later, I figured the whole situation would dissolve into laughter. I mean, surely the county authorities knew the difference between a legal fence and some HOA fantasy line. But things got weirder. Karen was sobbing, telling the deputy I'd threatened her, said she feared for her life, and accused me of trying to seize HOA land. I stood there calm, offered the deputy a bottle of cold water, and said, "Sir, would you like to see the deed and the official survey? Have them both printed and notarized inside?" The deputy, thank God, was reasonable. He reviewed the documents, nodded, and said, "Looks like it's your land, sir. You're good." Then he turned to Karen and said, "Ma'am, if you step on his property again, he'll be well within his rights to file trespassing charges. That should have been the end of it, right?" "Nope." Karen doubled down, stormed off shouting, "I'm not finished with you." I knew right then we weren't done. This was just the beginning. If I thought the 911 call was the end of the drama, I had no idea what was coming. See, most folks would have taken the deputy's word and left things alone, but not HOA Karen. Nope. For her, being proven wrong wasn't the end. It was a challenge. And when people like her feel embarrassed, they don't apologize, they retaliate. It all started the very next morning. I woke up to the sound of gravel crunching. I looked out my bedroom window and saw a group of 4 people standing just past the new fence line, clipboards in hand, snapping photos like they were crime scene investigators. I knew exactly who they were. HOA board members. Karen had mobilized her little army. I walked out, a mug of coffee in hand, leaned on the fence, and just watched. "Morning," I said. "You folks surveying the wildflowers or something?" One of the men turned to me and replied flatly, "We're conducting an official inspection. This fence violates HOA community standards." I raised an eyebrow. "That's interesting, since my property isn't under your HOA's jurisdiction." I pointed to the line in the survey I'd marked with a red flag. "Your boundary ends about 12 feet that way." But they didn't care. Karen stood smugly behind them and said, "The board has voted to fine you $500 a day until the fence is removed." I almost spit my coffee. "You're joking." "This isn't a joke," she said. "You're violating our aesthetic policy." I let that one sit in the air. Aesthetic policy. On a ranch, with barbed wire, surrounded by cows and tractors, they handed me a paper with a bunch of legal-sounding nonsense, most of which didn't apply to me. That's when I realized their plan wasn't to legally win. It was to exhaust me, harass me, intimidate me into backing down. But I wasn't wired like that. I grew up watching my grandfather fight off droughts, debt, and even the occasional snake in the barn. I wasn't about to roll over because a bored HOA president wanted to feel important. So I did what they never expect to die, went public. Posted on the community Facebook group. Not with anger, just facts. Polite message explaining the property line situation, showing a copy of my deed, and describing the harassment I'd been receiving. Within an hour, the post had over 200 comments. And to my surprise, a lot of folks were on my side. Turns out, Karen had a reputation. This wasn't her first HOA power trip. She'd fine people for paint colors, threatened to remove someone's. Mailbach even tried to ban a teen from parking his old truck in his own driveway. The neighbors were fed up, and I became the guy standing up to her. The messages poured in. "Good for you. We support you. You want us to show up at the next HOA meeting?" Oh yeah, I did. Of printed comments, signed support letters from neighbors, a copy of my survey, and a smug smile. The room was packed. Karen tried to run the meeting like usual, but the crowd wasn't having it. Every time she tried to speak, someone cut in. "Let the rancher speak. He's got the facts. We're tired of your rules, Karen." When I stood up, I didn't yell. I didn't attack. I just told the story, from the first misplaced flower bed to the 911 call. I showed the survey and the sheriff's report. I explained how my fence didn't cross the HOA line. The HOA crossed mine. There was a pause after I finished. Then a voice from the back said, "Sounds like the board owes him an apology." Karen flushed red, but said nothing. Of the board members, an older man named Frank ended the mic and said, "We'll review this further. Let's move on." They adjourned early. They walked out of that meeting with people shaking my hand. I thought it was over. But Karen wasn't done. The next week, I got a certified letter from a law firm. Not a real lawsuit, just a cease and desist, full of legal jargon, threatening me with action if I didn't remove the fence within 14 days. I laughed and called my lawyer an old family friend who knew exactly how to handle HOA nonsense. Sent a response the next day, attaching copies of the county property maps, title deeds, surveyor reports, and warned them that any further harassment would result in a countersuit for defamation and trespassing. Guess what? The letter worked. The law firm backed off, but Karen didn't. She escalated to the local news. One morning, I had a news van parked outside my gate. A reporter said they'd gotten a tip from the HOA about a rancher building illegal structures on community land. I invited them in, sat them down, gave them lemonade, and calmly laid out the facts in camera. By the time I was done, the reporter was nodding. The segment aired that night. Headline: Rancher battles HOA over land dispute. The footage showed Karen trying to dodge questions. The public reaction? Overwhelming. The HOA got flooded with emails, angry residents demanding change. Karen stopped showing her face in public. The board met behind closed doors. But I wasn't done yet. You see, I'd done some digging of my own. I found out the HOA had planted trees past the legal boundary line on my land years ago. I had every right to charge them rent, and I had a plan. Quiet, legal, and devastating. Some people learn when they get humbled. Others double down, dig their heels in, and keep pushing Evan when the entire community is against them. Karen was the second kind. After the news story aired, after the sheriff cleared me, and after my lawyer responded to their legal threats, she still wasn't done. She stopped confronting me directly, sure. But behind closed doors, she was scheming. Knew it. CHOA. Karens don't give up. They go quiet before the storm. Sure enough, the storm hit. One morning, I got an envelope taped to my mailbox. No postage, no return address, just a poorly typed letter that read, "Final notice, remove. The fence or the HOA will take direct action." Now, most folks would have panicked, but not me. Because by then, I had a secret weapon. While Karen was wasting time with threats and news tips, I'd been talking with the county assessor's office, digging through public records and cross-referencing everything with a land use attorney. What I discovered was pure gold. Years ago, when the neighborhood was built, the HOA developers accidentally used about 15 feet of my land to install decorative trees and irrigation lines. Nothing big, just a narrow strip at the edge of their walking trail. But here's the thing. In the eyes of the law, that wasn't theirs. It was mine, and legally. That meant I could charge them rent for using my land, and if they didn't want to pay, I had every right to reclaim it. I decided to play it smart. I sent them a formal lease agreement. Simple offer. $2,500 a month. For unauthorized land use, retroactive to the date of installation, going back 5 years, that's $150,000 in back pay.
What?
With copies of the county maps, satellite images, and legal annotations. I had it all notarized and delivered straight to the HOA office with a calm, polite letter attached. Greater than if you'd like to avoid legal proceedings, feel free to vacate the land within 30 days. And just like that, the tone changed. Board called an emergency meeting. Karen didn't speak. The first time in this entire ordeal, she was silent, red-faced, cornered. The board brought in their own surveyor to double-check. And guess what? He confirmed every inch of my claim. That 15-foot strip